Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I never thought I'd end up here, but now, looking back, it's almost like I should have seen it coming. You know, sometimes you think everything's fine. Your life, your routine, is solid, predictable. And that's what I thought. For a long time, I was comfortable in my own little bubble. I woke up every morning at 7 a.m., brewed my coffee, had a quiet breakfast at my kitchen table, and went to work. Everything was in order. Everything was fine. Until that day. It started off like any other morning. The sun was barely peeking through the blinds, casting those soft, golden streaks across the kitchen floor. I remember sitting at my table, sipping my coffee, feeling the warmth of the mug against my hands. The world outside seemed distant, muffled. The refrigerator hummed in the background. The clock ticked steadily on the wall. Everything was as it should be. But then, there was this feeling, something off. It wasn't like a full-on panic or anything. Just this nagging sensation, like when you know something's wrong, but you can't figure out what it is. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe the stress from work was catching up with me. But deep down, I felt it. The unease growing. Just barely out of reach. I took another sip of my coffee, trying to shake it off. The cup was warm, the taste familiar, the routine comforting. That's when I felt it. The cup. It moved. It wasn't much, just a slight tremble, but it was enough to make my stomach flip. I stopped mid-sip, staring at it like it had suddenly developed a life of its own. My hands were steady, I hadn't bumped it. But there it was, the faintest movement, a subtle shiver in the glass. No, I told myself. It's just in my head. I set the cup down and tried to move on, but I couldn't. The silence in the apartment, the perfect quiet I usually took for granted, started to feel different. It felt heavy. The refrigerator's hum seemed louder now. More invasive. The clock ticking on the wall wasn't just marking the passage of time. It was drawing attention to every passing second. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. Focus, I told myself. You've got a routine. A predictable day ahead. I glanced at the clock. It was 8:15 a.m., just the right amount of time to finish my breakfast and get to work. It was supposed to be normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. I stood up and went to wash my hands in the sink. The water was cold, shockingly so, as I splashed it on my face. I looked up at the mirror above the sink. Just a quick glance. And that's when it happened. I saw it. Or maybe I didn't see it. My reflection, it wasn't right. Not in the way you'd expect a mirror to betray you, but something was off. I could have sworn, no, I did swear. I saw my reflection linger a split second longer than I did. It was subtle. Too subtle to fully comprehend at first. But I knew it. Something wasn't right. I turned away quickly, telling myself it was just the lighting. Maybe the way I was standing. Maybe I was just tired. But deep down, I couldn't shake it. Something was there. Something watching me. I went back to the kitchen, trying to focus, trying to get my head straight. But every moment felt distorted, like reality was warping around me. I had this insane feeling that the apartment, my own home, was no longer my safe place. Like the walls were closing in, pushing in on me. And the mirror, it was staring at me, watching. I didn't want to look, but I did. I turned back toward the mirror, drawn to it. maybe to confirm that I was imagining things. But no, there it was. My reflection. No, not just my reflection was still there. It was frozen in time, staring back at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The eyes in the mirror were mine, yes, but they were different. I didn't know how to explain it. I couldn't tell if it was fear or just a deep, gnawing sense that something was wrong. But I knew one thing: those eyes weren't mine. I quickly turned away again, feeling the urge to run. My heart was pounding in my chest, but my feet felt like lead. I walked out of the bathroom, my mind racing. I had to get to work. I had to leave. I had to get out of here. This is just in your head, Anna. This is just stress. It's not real. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more the weight of something pressed down on me. The apartment felt colder. The silence felt thicker. I glanced back once more at the bathroom mirror, almost against my will. And that's when I saw it. The reflection? No, it wasn't a reflection anymore. It was alive. It was smiling at me. And I hadn't smiled. I wasn't even close to smiling. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. My heart slammed against my ribs. The reflection's smile widened. It was too wide, too sharp, like something that was never meant to be there. It stretched across its face, a grin so cruel it made my stomach turn. I backed away from the mirror, my legs shaking. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. My own reflection, no, not just a reflection, something else, was looking back at me. And that's when I realized. This wasn't a trick of the light. This wasn't exhaustion. Something was in the mirror with me, and it wasn't me. I know what you're thinking. You've probably heard the stories. The ones about people feeling like something's off. Their reflection not quite right. People brush it off as stress, tiredness, or just a weird trick of the mind. But when it happens to you, when it's your reflection, staring back at you with something else behind it, you don't just brush it off. It all started like any other morning. You know, the kind, quiet, uneventful. The kind where everything feels like it's on autopilot. The world outside was still, barely stirring, as the soft light filtered through the blinds. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the apartment, the steady rhythm of the clock on the wall marking time. I thought everything was fine. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping my coffee, staring out at the empty street below. Everything was in its place. The cups, the plates, the utensils. Routine, predictable, perfectly normal. But there was something there, something I couldn't shake but I couldn't see either. A feeling, like an itch under my skin. At first, it was so subtle I thought I was imagining it. Stress from work, maybe. Too much caffeine. But even as I sat there, everything felt wrong. Like the world outside was just a little too far away, like I was seeing it through a fog. I tried to brush it off. It's nothing, I told myself. I stood up, moved toward the bathroom. I was already going through the motions. Wash up, get dressed, head out, the usual. I passed by the hallway mirror, caught a glimpse of myself. For a moment, I stopped. It wasn't anything obvious, not a huge shift, nothing drastic. But the reflection, there was something off about it. Like it hesitated a fraction of a second too long, like it was waiting for something. It made my stomach drop, but I told myself it was nothing. The lighting, my mind playing tricks. I shook it off, just a momentary glitch, everything's fine. I went about my day, tried to stick to my routine, but that nagging feeling didn't leave. It was like a shadow, trailing behind me. Every time I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror or window, it was there again, this unsettling wrongness. Something was wrong with my reflection. It wasn't exactly like it wasn't me, but it wasn't right either. By the time I got home that evening, I was exhausted. I just wanted to sink into the comfort of my own space, forget about the strange feeling that clung to me. I made dinner, the steady sound of cooking filling the apartment, trying to drown out the discomfort that was growing in my chest. The whole night felt off. It was like the air in the apartment was too thick, too still. I ate quickly, not even really tasting the food. I didn't have the energy to savor it. I barely even finished when I decided to take a shower, hoping the hot water would clear my mind. The steam enveloped me as I stood under the water, trying to let it soothe me. But all I could think about was that feeling, the one that never went away. I closed my eyes, trying to forget everything. It's nothing, it's just exhaustion. I said it over and over in my head, but the words felt hollow. When I finished, I grabbed a towel and wiped the steam from the mirror. The glass was fogged up, so I had to wipe it clear before I could see my reflection. But when I did, I froze. I stared at myself for a long, silent moment. I don't even know why I was looking at myself so intently. Maybe I was trying to prove something to myself, trying to convince myself that nothing had changed. But that's when I saw it. I reached for the towel, and so did my reflection. But it wasn't in sync with me. It was delayed, like it was a beat behind, struggling to catch up. I stood there, frozen, my hand hanging awkwardly in the air. My reflection copied the movement, just a second too late. I blinked. My hand was still raised. The reflection was still mimicking me, but it wasn't right. It was too slow, too unsure. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. But then it got worse. It wasn't just the delay. There was something else in the reflection. Something I can't even describe properly. I watched, horrified, as my own face shifted. The tiniest movement at the corner of my lips, like a smirk. But it wasn't my smirk. It was twisted, too wide, too sharp. I staggered back, the towel slipping from my grip, my breath coming in shallow gasps. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. But I was staring at it, unable to tear my eyes away. My reflection was mocking me. A cruel version of myself that wasn't quite me, but wasn't quite not me either. I backed up, nearly tripping over my own feet. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The reflection, no. The thing in the mirror, it wasn't right. It wasn't me anymore. I glanced over my shoulder, my heart hammering. The apartment felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in on me. Everything was too close. I reached out, my hand shaking, and pressed it against the cold glass, hoping to make it stop, make it go away. But my reflection didn't stop. It didn't even flinch. It just stayed there, waiting, watching. My heart was in my throat, and I could barely make myself move. It was as if I was trapped in that moment, in that room with the thing in the mirror. And that's when I knew. Something was happening. Something I couldn't control. Something that was bigger than me. And it was only just beginning. You ever get that feeling? The one where you know something's wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. That's how I felt in the days that followed. I tried to convince myself I was just tired, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But I couldn't shake the unease. Something was off. It clung to me, tight and heavy, and no matter how much I tried to go about my routine, I couldn't escape it. I thought if I just went through the motions, everything would return to normal. But it didn't. It was late in the evening, just after dinner. I'd been trying to relax, trying to unwind. The apartment was quieter than usual, and the silence wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. But I told myself I was being paranoid. I just finished brushing my teeth, the cool water still dripping from my fingers as I reached for the towel. I glanced in the bathroom mirror, just a quick look as I dried my hands. And that's when it happened. I froze. My reflection was smiling. Not just any smile. No, this one was wrong. A wide, eerie grin spread across my face in the mirror. I didn't smile. I hadn't even thought about it. But there it was, my reflection, twisting into something it shouldn't be, something that didn't belong. I blinked, thinking it was just a trick of the light, but no. There it was, clear as day, the smile stretched unnaturally wide. It was the kind of smile that only someone who had something dark on their mind would wear. It was like a mask, a smile that didn't belong to me. I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't move, didn't know what to do. I just stood there, staring at it, trying to understand how the reflection in front of me could be so wrong. It was my face. It was mine, but it wasn't. The eyes were still mine, but they were gleaming. There was something about them, something that didn't belong. They were too knowing, too sharp. And that smile, it was so wide, too wide. It didn't match the rest of my face. It was like it had stretched and pulled itself beyond what was natural. And it wasn't just a smile. It was mocking me. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there, watching it. My reflection in the mirror stood still, as if waiting. The smile didn't fade. It lingered, as if it was savoring the fear that was flooding my chest. I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. What was happening? Was this real? I reached up to touch my face, trembling, trying to make sense of it all. It's just a trick. It's just my mind, I tried to convince myself. But the smile didn't fade. It stayed there, staring back at me. It was like the reflection was alive in a way that shouldn't have been possible. I took a step back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. But the thing in the mirror, my reflection, stayed right there, its smile never faltering, its eyes never leaving mine. I reached for the towel again, my hands shaking, and I wiped the fog from the mirror, hoping, praying, that maybe it was just the mist. Maybe it was the steam playing tricks. But when the glass cleared, the smile was still there, and it was even wider now, like it was pleased, like it knew something I didn't. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My reflection wasn't just following me anymore. It was waiting. And I wasn't sure if I could trust my own mind anymore, but I knew one thing. This wasn't just a trick. This wasn't just me being paranoid. My reflection was smiling at me, and I had no idea why. I took another step back, my heart racing. I knew that something was terribly wrong. And no matter how much I wanted to believe it was just a momentary glitch, I couldn't ignore the chill creeping down my spine, the fear clawing at my insides. The thing in the mirror wasn't me anymore. And that was the moment I realized. I was no longer sure which one of us was real. I turned away from the mirror, my legs shaking beneath me, my head spinning with the impossible. What had happened to me? To my reflection? But the worst part? The worst part was that as I walked away, I could feel it. It was still there, watching, smiling. And I couldn't help but feel that it wasn't just in the mirror anymore. It had followed me, and it was never going to stop. Not until it had replaced me. You won't believe what happened next. I still can't believe it, and I was there. It was so simple, so ordinary. I was sitting on the couch trying to distract myself from the noise in my head, the unease that had been growing stronger with each passing day. I picked up an old book, something I'd read a dozen times, thinking maybe the comfort of the familiar would calm my nerves. But the words felt hollow. My mind kept drifting back to the mirror, to the smile that wasn't mine, to the thing that was trying to take over. It was late, around midnight, the kind of stillness that creeps in when everything else has fallen asleep. The air in the apartment was too quiet. Not the comforting quiet you get when you're alone, but the kind of quiet that feels wrong. Like someone, or something, is watching you from just beyond the corner of your vision. I don't know why, but my eyes kept drifting toward the hallway mirror. It felt like I couldn't stop looking, like something was drawing me in. So I glanced up, just a quick peek. I saw myself standing there in the hallway, looking back at me. But something was off. The mirror wasn't reflecting me the way it should. My reflection was moving, too slow, like it was a beat behind. I stopped. That's when I saw it, the wave. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, but no, it was real. I swear to you, it was real. My reflection, it waved. Not the casual kind of wave, no, it was urgent. It was almost as if it was trying to get my attention, as if it was reaching out to me, begging me to see it. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't move. My hand was still resting in my lap, unmoving. But there it was, it, my reflection, waving at me, beckoning me. I stared, my blood running cold. I hadn't raised my hand, I hadn't even thought about moving. Yet there it was, my reflection's hand raised high, its fingers jerking with this strange, frantic energy, as if it were desperate for me to see it. And I felt it. This wave of panic crashing over me. I tried to look away, tried to ignore it, but my eyes were glued to the mirror. I was trapped in it. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was still sitting there on the couch, motionless. Yet my reflection was not still. It was moving. It was alive. The hand in the mirror waved again, more insistently this time, like it was mocking me, like it knew I was frozen in place. The wave wasn't a friendly gesture anymore. It was wrong. The fingers moved too fast, too sharply. It wasn't me. It wasn't the reflection of me. It was something else, something unnatural. My throat went dry. The air around me felt like it was thickening, pressing down on me. I didn't know what to do. I was too scared to move, too terrified to look away. The reflection, it wasn't me. It was it, the thing that had been slowly taking over my life, my reality. I pushed myself up from the couch, my legs trembling, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to go closer. I had to see what it wanted. My heart was pounding in my chest as I took hesitant steps toward the hallway mirror. Each step felt heavier than the last, like I was wading through water. The reflection in the mirror didn't stop waving. It was still there, that frantic, unnatural motion, like it was trying to reach through the glass, trying to drag me in. I stood there, inches from the mirror, my breath shallow, my hands cold. My reflection was still waving, still alive, like it was waiting for me to do something, anything, to make it stop. I reached my hand out toward the glass, trembling, almost afraid of what would happen if I touched it. But the moment my fingers hovered near the surface, I felt it. The air shifted. It wasn't just cold, it was freezing, like ice had suddenly swept into the room. My fingers shook, but I couldn't pull them away. I was stuck, watching that thing in the mirror, that thing that wasn't me. It didn't stop. The wave didn't stop. It felt like the reflection was pulling me in, like it was trying to take me, drag me through the mirror. I could almost feel the glass beneath my fingertips. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I was suffocating, caught between worlds between me and it, and that's when I realized it wasn't just the reflection anymore. The mirror wasn't just showing me myself. It was showing me something that had taken me, something that was now standing in my place, something that wanted to be me. I stumbled back, my legs buckling beneath me. I gasped for air, my body shaking, but I couldn't stop looking. My reflection, the thing in the mirror, wasn't just waving anymore. It was waiting, waiting for me to step in, waiting for me to take its place. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know how to stop it. I only knew one thing. I couldn't escape. It was already inside my world, and it was getting closer, closer, and it wasn't just waving anymore, it was beckoning. I thought it was just a phase. Maybe it was just the stress, maybe the exhaustion. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. That feeling had been growing for days now. It was like something was waiting for me, lurking just behind the walls of my mind. And no matter how much I tried to ignore it, the feeling wouldn't go away. It started innocently enough, with the mirror, just small things at first. My reflection would seem a little slower, a little off. But then came the smile. A grin that stretched too wide, too sharp, and that was when I knew something was very wrong. That grin wasn't mine. Those eyes, they weren't mine. But the real horror, the real terror, came when the whispering started. It wasn't loud at first, just a faint tapping, like someone knocking on the bathroom door from the inside. It was soft, almost gentle at first, but there was something about it that made my skin crawl. I couldn't ignore it. I tried to. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was the wind, or maybe the house settling. But it wouldn't stop. Tap, tap, tap. I felt it deep in my bones, that pull. Something was beckoning me. Something was waiting. I grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand and stumbled out of bed, my heart already pounding in my chest. My breath felt thick, like the air in my apartment had turned to sludge, making every step feel heavier, slower. The closer I got to the bathroom, the louder the tapping grew. It was so much closer now, pounding against my eardrums, filling my head with an unbearable rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Each knock felt like it was drilling its way into my skull, driving me mad. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't turn away. I reached the bathroom door. My hand hovered over the knob, shaking uncontrollably. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run away, to slam the door shut and lock myself in my bedroom. But my body wouldn't let me. It was like something was pulling me, dragging me toward the bathroom, making me face whatever was inside. I turned the knob. The door creaked open slowly, the sound too loud in the silence. The cold air rushed out to meet me, a sharp, biting chill that sent shivers down my spine. I felt my legs tremble beneath me as I stepped inside. And then, I saw it. The mirror. It was there, as it always had been. But it wasn't just reflecting the bathroom anymore. It was alive. I couldn't look away. I shouldn't have looked. But I did, and I saw it. The thing that had been waiting for me. There, just behind me in the mirror, was my reflection. But it wasn't me, not anymore. The eyes were wrong, dark, gleaming, with something twisted behind them. The smile was there again, that wide mocking grin that wasn't mine. And then I heard it. A whisper. Not from my own mouth, but from inside my head. The voice wasn't my own, but it felt familiar. Too familiar. "Come closer," it said, the voice soft and coaxing, like a lover's invitation. But there was nothing loving about it. The words crawled under my skin, sending a jolt of terror through me. I couldn't move. My feet felt rooted to the floor, my legs frozen, as if the mirror had a hold on me. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. The thing in the mirror. It wasn't just watching me anymore, it was calling to me, and it was getting closer. The reflection moved, leaned forward, pressing against the glass. Its hand, my hand, pressed against the mirror too, but it wasn't my hand. It wasn't mine anymore. The fingers stretched, like they were reaching out to me, pulling me toward the glass. "Come closer," it whispered again, louder this time, sharp and insistent. "You belong to me now." I took a step back, my body moving on its own, but my eyes couldn't tear themselves away from the thing in the mirror. It wasn't just my reflection, it was alive, it was taking over. And then it hit me. The cold, the bone-chilling cold that swept through the room like a gust of ice. It wrapped around me, freezing me in place until I could barely feel my own fingers. The mirror, the thing inside it. It wasn't just looking at me anymore, it was reaching for me. I could feel its presence crawling over me, pulling at me, until I was trapped in its gaze. The whispers came again, louder, more urgent now. "You're already mine." The reflection was no longer just a reflection. It was me, but it was something else, something darker. And then everything stopped. The air was thick and heavy, pressing against me, suffocating me. My mind screamed, but the words never left my mouth. My body was trembling, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, caught in the grip of the thing in the mirror. And that's when I realized the truth. It wasn't just a mirror, it was a trap. I wasn't just staring at my reflection anymore, I was staring at what had taken my place. And it was getting ready to take everything. And then, in that instant, the last whisper came. It wasn't from inside my head, it was from the thing in the mirror. "Welcome home." And I knew. I knew it was too late. I should have never looked. I should have never walked toward the mirror. But the moment I saw it, I couldn't stop myself. The reflection wasn't mine anymore, I knew that. But it was so hard to admit, so hard to accept. How could something that looked so much like me, felt like me, be something else? Something wrong? But it was. And the moment I took that step closer, I realized I had made a terrible mistake. My heart was pounding in my chest, my body trembling as I inched forward. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop. The reflection, the thing in the mirror, was watching me. Its eyes dark and knowing, its grin stretching unnaturally wide, like it was savoring every moment of my terror. Every step I took, it mirrored me. But it was different. Alive. The eyes were full of malice, full of something far worse than I could ever understand. I could feel it, the cold air around me, thick and suffocating. The longer I stared at it, the closer it seemed to get. And then, it moved. I felt my stomach lurch as I stumbled back. It wasn't just a flicker, it wasn't a simple delay in movement. It stepped forward. Not inside the mirror, but right through it, right into my world. The glass didn't shatter, there were no cracks. But somehow, it crossed that boundary. It was crossing into my reality. Its form, my form, stepped through. One leg coming through first, then the other, its weight pressing against the air, the room. It was solid. It was here. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook violently as I staggered backward. My legs felt like lead, my mind trying desperately to understand what was happening, but everything was slipping away. I couldn't process it. How was this possible? The thing that wasn't me, took another step. Its foot hit the cold bathroom floor, and I swear, the whole room seemed to exhale as it stepped into my world. I felt the air shift, the atmosphere growing heavier, thicker, with a sense of dread. Its eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. It wasn't just my reflection anymore. It wasn't just following me, it was alive, and it wanted me to see that. It smiled, that smile, wide, grotesque, and wrong. It stretched too far across its face like it had been stitched there. The teeth didn't match mine. The expression didn't match mine. The thing in the mirror, it was smiling, but not in the way I had ever smiled. And then it spoke. "You're in the wrong place," it whispered, its voice dark, hollow, not mine. It was deeper, colder, like it was coming from somewhere else. Somewhere that I wasn't. Somewhere it was. It's time to swap. It stepped even closer. So close now that I could feel the temperature drop, could feel the chilling breath on my skin, even though it hadn't touched me. I backed away, but my feet wouldn't listen. They were rooted in place, my body refusing to respond to my mind's desperate screams to move, to run. I was paralyzed, and it was coming closer. And then, in the reflection, I saw it. It didn't just look like me anymore. It was me. Or rather, it was trying to be me. But something in its eyes, something in the way it moved, the way it smiled, told me it wasn't. I wasn't looking at myself. I was looking at something else. Something that had been waiting, watching, growing in the mirror, waiting for the moment when it could finally step into my world. I felt the cold, so cold, wrap around me. It was crawling through my veins now, freezing me from the inside out. It reached out, its hand, my hand, but it wasn't mine. I could feel the chill of it, colder than anything I had ever experienced, as if it had come from another realm. Its fingers brushed my skin, and I recoiled, but my body was slow. My limbs, heavy and uncooperative, wouldn't let me move fast enough. "You can't run," it whispered, its voice like nails on glass. It sounded like me, but it wasn't. "You can't escape." And then it did something I hadn't expected. It stepped out. The thing, my reflection, pulled its foot free from the glass, and as if the mirror had no power anymore, it crossed the line that separated it from the real world. I could see it now, really see it. And it wasn't me. It was a twisted version of me. A dark mirror of everything I had ever been. It stood before me, towering over me, and I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It smiled, that same twisted smile, its eyes gleaming with an evil I couldn't understand. The room felt too small. The space between us felt too tight, like it was closing in on me, like there was no escape, no way out. The thing, it, was here. I was the one trapped now. And as it stepped closer, I realized something horrifying. I had been replaced. This thing, this mirror image, was me now. And I was the one left behind, stuck in the reflection. Forever. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the reflection, the thing, looking down at me with a grin that stretched impossibly wide, its eyes full of hunger. And it whispered, "Welcome to your new life." And just like that, everything faded. I was trapped. Trapped in the mirror, forever watching, forever unable to escape. I don't know when it happened, but I felt it before I saw it. One moment I was still standing there, watching the thing in the mirror, my reflection, and then, the next, it was like the world around me collapsed, like something snapped. My body went cold, frozen in place, and the air became thick, suffocating. It felt like everything was tightening around me, like I was being crushed, every breath harder than the last. I couldn't move, and then I realized why. I wasn't moving because I couldn't move. My legs, my arms, my entire body, it wasn't mine anymore. It was like I was paralyzed, stuck in some kind of thick, suffocating fog that kept me trapped in this horrible, unfeeling state. And I felt it. The thing, the reflection, was out. It wasn't just standing there staring at me. It had stepped out of the mirror. The moment I realized that, the terror hit me like a physical punch. The glass didn't shatter, it didn't break, but somehow, it was like the mirror had become a doorway, like it had bent reality itself to let it through. I couldn't move. My eyes were glued to it, my twisted reflection, as it stood there in the space I once occupied. I was rooted to the spot, unable to do anything but watch. The reflection, it, wasn't me anymore. It looked like me, sure, but the moment it took that step, it became something else. Something darker. Its eyes, those weren't my eyes, they were cold, empty, full of something far worse than I could ever understand. And the smile on its face? It stretched, impossibly wide, too wide, the kind of smile that didn't belong. It was cruel, mocking. It was the smile of someone who had just won, someone who had gotten what they wanted, and I realized, with absolute horror, that what it wanted was me. It moved closer. Each step it took felt like it was pushing me deeper into the mirror, like the more it moved, the more real it became, and the more I faded into the reflection. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight, anything, but my body wouldn't respond. I couldn't feel anything. I was a ghost, trapped behind the glass, just watching as it took over my life. I couldn't breathe. It took another step forward. I wanted to scream, but there was no sound. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. It was too close now. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape the truth. The truth that it was me, and I wasn't anything anymore. The thing, the reflection, reached out. It touched me, but not really. Its fingers weren't mine. They were cold, so cold, colder than ice. And when it touched me, it was like an electric shock, a burning cold that made every nerve in my body scream in agony. I wanted to pull away, to break free from the nightmare, but I couldn't. I was trapped in the mirror. "You're not needed anymore," it whispered, its voice so calm, so sinister, like it had been waiting for this moment forever. "I am you now." And just like that, I realized I wasn't needed anymore. It had taken my place. I was nothing but a prisoner now, trapped inside this mirror, forced to watch as it lived my life. I was trapped behind the glass, frozen, paralyzed, and there was no escape. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I could only watch as the thing, it, took over everything I once was. I felt the cold seeping deeper into me, into my soul. It wasn't just my body that was frozen. It was my very being. And the worst part? The worst part was realizing that it didn't even look back. It didn't need to. It was me, now. I was nothing. I was stuck, a shadow. A flickering image that didn't even matter anymore. And all I could do was watch as it, my reflection, lived my life. And I was trapped behind the mirror, forever. I don't even know when it happened, but the shift was undeniable. I had felt it long before I saw it, this cold, suffocating grip slowly tightening around my chest. Something was happening, something I couldn't escape. My breath felt shallow, like the air itself had turned heavy, almost as if the world around me was squeezing me tighter and tighter. I could see it. It. The thing that had taken my place. It stood there, just outside the glass, grinning at me like a predator, its eyes glinting with dark amusement. It was wearing my life, wearing my face, but it wasn't me anymore. It was something else, something far darker. And then came the final realization, the one that broke me completely. I wasn't trapped in the mirror because of some glitch. I wasn't trapped here because I was cursed or because the glass had taken me. No. I was trapped because I had always been trapped. From the very first moment, the reflection began to twist, to distort, to show me that smiling face, that thing. It had already taken me. It hadn't just replaced me physically, it had replaced everything. It was never me out there, living my life, it was the reflection. It had slowly, subtly consumed me, my thoughts, my memories, my very essence. And I was the hollow thing now, trapped behind the mirror, forced to watch as it lived, walked, and breathed in the world I once knew. I could feel it in my chest now, this empty hollow where I used to be, like something precious had been drained from me, leaving only the cold, the darkness, the void. I realized it had been a long time since I felt truly alive. It was so cruel I couldn't even scream anymore. The thing that looked like me, that smiled that wicked grin, had become everything I once was. I wasn't just replaced, I had been erased, completely. I was nothing now, just a memory, trapped in the cold, infinite glass, fading away. But there was no escape. There would be no breaking free from this cage. I pressed my hands against the mirror, feeling the cold seep into my skin, my bones, my very soul. The glass was solid, unforgiving. No matter how much I tried to push, to scream, to fight, nothing moved, nothing changed. My body, once mine, felt heavy, numb. My fingers, they weren't even mine anymore, slipped away from the glass as I tried to claw my way out, but nothing worked. I could see the reflection, my reflection, laughing, moving freely, living in the world that should have been mine. It moved about casually, taking over every aspect of my life, my space, my body. It was me, but it was also something else, something twisted. And I couldn't stop it. The reflection looked back at me once, smiling that grin that never should have existed. It wasn't mine anymore. It was it. It whispered, "You're never coming back." And I felt it then. I felt the weight of its truth crushing me. I was never coming back. It had stolen everything from me, and now I was the one trapped, lost, behind this glass. Forever. As I stood there, paralyzed by that final realization, I saw the reflection's face shift, the smile widening impossibly. The eyes, its eyes, burned with a dark, sick satisfaction. It tilted its head, like it was studying me, amused by my hopelessness. It was in complete control now. It had everything. And I? I was nothing. Just a broken echo trapped inside a mirror. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the reflection's smile. And I knew then, it wasn't just a smile, it was a victory. The final twist? I was the one trapped. The thing that replaced me was free. And I would be here, in this mirror, forever. A ghost. A shadow. Gone. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.